What started out as a normal day in Disney World has now taken a rather bizarre twist. We're counting down the top 10 strangest things to ever happen inside the most magical place on Earth, Walt Disney World, today on DFB Guide. Hey everybody, it's AJ for Disney Food Blog. So one of the things we take a lot of pride in on this channel is making sure you're set up for success and prepared for whatever comes your way during your Disney World trip. However, as is life, Disney World can be quite unpredictable at times. So unpredictable, in fact, that the 10 situations we'll be talking about today are forever ingrained in our brains and have become the Roman empires of the DFB team. By the end of today's video, you'll see what the team and I have voted on as the strangest situation to ever have occurred inside these parks, but you can always let us know what you think deserves the top spot down in the comments, because the more weird stuff we can talk about, the better. Also, quick note on this one, we are not going to include any situations that ended in tragedy or death in today's video. Those situations have happened on Disney grounds, but we just don't think it's appropriate to share those out of respect for the families. First up, number 10, Disney Skyliner's rocky start. It's one thing for a theme park ride to have a few technical mishaps in the first few weeks or even months after its debut, but when a new transportation system runs into issues and strands its guests on a sky gondola 60 feet in the air for 3 hours? That's a whole other story. This transportation system opened on September 29th, 2019, and that was exciting stuff. Still exciting, honestly. I love riding on the Skyliner, even if I'm not heading anywhere in particular. On October 5th, 2019, however, just a couple of days after the Skyliner opened, it experienced its first gondola crash, leading to guests being stranded in the air for over 3 hours. Fortunately, everyone got off safely, and Disney apologized to each stranded guest by offering them 2 $50 Disney gift cards, 2 Disney World Park Hopper tickets, and cold bottles of water once they were safely back on the ground again. But the Skyliner remained closed for over a week after that incident as Disney worked out the system's kinks to get it back up and running again. Now, the Skyliner's had very few hiccups since then, but none of those instances were nearly as intense as that crash from 2019. I know, makes kind of nervous, doesn't it? But I promise you, Disney's Skyliner system is still one of the most reliable sources of transportation on property. In the rare situation that you might find yourself having to stay put in one of the gondolas for an extended amount of time due to an unprecedented turn of events, you will have access to the Skyliner's emergency kits located under the bench seating, which include a few packets of water, cool packs, a pencil and notepad, a whistle, a glow stick, and a few blue cups. But again, this is only for emergency use, so there's like a 99.99999% chance you'll never use these packs, ever. Here's the thing, the Skyliner does have frequent gondola delays, but if your gondola pauses while you're still in the air, don't panic. Since the Skyliner is a continuously operating system, it's totally normal for it to experience brief delays as guests board and depart from the gondola cabins. So just remain calm and wait for your gondola to start back up again. Now, there are some strange parts about planning a Disney World vacation, for sure, but Disney's free transportation services do not have to leave you scratching your head. If you scan the QR code you see on the screen right now, or if you're watching from your phone, you can head to disneyfoodblog.com/transport. We're going to send you a free guide telling you all the ins and outs of when it comes to Disney's Skyliner, monorail, boats, and buses, including routes and travel times between locations, best travel practices, and a bunch more. Okay, number 9, the all-day lines for the Figment popcorn bucket. Look, I like Figgy as much as the next guy, but the Figment popcorn bucket crisis of 2022 was wild. At the beginning of January 2022, Epcot released this limited edition popcorn bucket in honor of the Festival of the Arts kickoff. And it was Figment, and he was super cute, and he came with rainbow popcorn, which was also cute. But Figment fans didn't just think this bucket was cute. It was mandatory to own. Suddenly, there was this unspoken agreement among the Disney community that the coolest cats and kittens were going to be the owners of this here popcorn bucket. So when the Figment popcorn bucket debuted, lines to pick up this bucket stretched around the park and created at their peak 6-hour wait times. I am not kidding. Not surprisingly, I do mention this popcorn bucket situation a couple times in my upcoming book, Disney Adults, which if you haven't already pre-ordered it, now's the time, especially if you're digging the whole idea of talking about a Figment popcorn bucket. So at its longest, Google Maps recorded the wait for this line to be nearly a half mile. Again, I love you, Figment, but that's the type of dedication that I lack. Anyway, after these buckets sold out, many folks raced to the internet to resell them for hundreds of dollars, which is outrageous. Please don't do this. But the Figment popcorn bucket returned to Epcot for a short amount of time for a round 2, right before the Festival of the Arts wrapped up, meaning Figment fans who weren't able to get a bucket during the first release before it sold out had a second shot with lines that weren't as outrageous as before. Since then, Figment has appeared on other Festival of the Arts popcorn buckets. Even in 2025, we saw him pop up on a popcorn container shaped like a flying light bulb, still filled with rainbow popcorn, of course. But Disney has since learned from the past. Now, when it comes to those more in-demand popcorn buckets, Disney will usually feature them as a mobile order option at select quick service locations to help prevent any wildly long popcorn bucket lines from forming. And remember, if you purchase a bucket at the beginning of your trip, whether it has a purple dragon slapped across it somewhere or not, you'll be able to get it refilled at participating popcorn kiosks around each of the parks for just $2.25 per refill. Number 8 is fire! Immediately, I want to assure you that nobody was hurt during either of these situations, but the fact that they happened at all is wild, and both in Magic Kingdom on top of that. First, there was the Maleficent dragon that burst into flames during the Festival of Fantasy parade back in May of 2018. You see, this ginormous float not only looks cool and steampunkish, but it has a fabulous fire-breathing feature to really bring the villainous dragon to life. But during what should have been her normal moseying around the park, the fiery effect backfired. Thankfully, the cast member operating the float was able to quickly evacuate and the fire was swiftly put out. However, Maleficent disappeared from the parade for a while, which is understandable. Her head took quite a bit of damage. If I were a giant steampunk dragon and that happened to me, I would want to go on sabbatical after that too. But what makes the situation even more wild is that this wouldn't be the last time a Maleficent fire-breathing effect would drastically impact a Disney show in a negative way. Should I do a strangest things to ever happen in Disneyland video in the future? Because I guarantee you the Fantasmic Disneyland fire from 2023, caused by yet another Maleficent animatronic, would definitely make that list. So while the Maleficent dragon is no longer part of Fantasmic in Disneyland due to the severe damages that left the animatronic irreparable, the Festival of Fantasy Millie dragon is back up and running again. Now here's something you might want to know before you go see this show. Maleficent only breathes fire during the parade at certain locations. If you're waiting for the parade to go by in Liberty Square, for instance, this is a no Maleficent fire zone. And that's because you've got that iconic real-life 100-year-old Liberty tree in Liberty Square that Walt picked out himself. So Disney doesn't need any flames in that area that could potentially, make it all go up in smoke. Maleficent also doesn't breathe fire at the start of the parade route in Frontierland near Tiana's Bayou Adventure. She'll start showing off her powers near Pecos Bill Tall Tale Inn and Cafe, stops when she arrives in Liberty Square, and then starts again after she crosses the bridge leading to Cinderella Castle. So if seeing Maleficent do her thing is on your priority list, don't be staking out a spot for this show at the start of the route or in the middle of Liberty Square. But wait, there's more fire stories where that came from. About halfway through December of 2022, we saw some different vehicles driving down Main Street, USA, and not of the steampunk dragon variety either. Emergency vehicles made their way into Magic Kingdom right onto Main Street, USA after a fire broke out near Cinderella Castle, or at least we thought it was a fire. Don't worry though, the story has a happy ending, thank goodness. Guests were evacuated from the immediate area and the fire was small enough that it was taken care of super quickly with just a fire extinguisher. Number 7 is KitTails. Was KitTails strange with a capital S? Yes. But was it also strangely amazing? Yes. The fact that I can say that I was alive and inside the parks during the era of KitTails is something I will tell my grandkids about someday, and they might look at me weird and feel sorry for me, but they won't get it because they weren't there. Disney KitTails debuted in Animal Kingdom during Disney World's 50th anniversary celebration. I can remember I was sitting in Steakhouse 71 the minute I heard about it, and I was like, this thing is epic. It was beautiful, but beautiful in a way where I feel transported back to the days where Disney did bizarre experimental stuff just to see what happened. Don't worry, we'll be talking more about that experimental stuff later on. We have 6 more points to go after this. When Disney first released the concept art for this Discovery River Amphitheater show, it seemed like it was going to be really nice and maybe a little sophisticated. Then the show started up and it was like, whatever the opposite of sophisticated is. Goofy, whimsical, whatever. What I'm trying to say is that it was even better than I could have hoped for. There were 2 different versions of these 10-minute shows. One was based around characters and music from The Lion King, and the other was inspired by The Jungle Book. And although the kites were big and colorful, and again, not sophisticated in the slightest, people's favorite part about the whole thing ended up being the crash landings on the bleachers of these kites when they finished their show. I still remember when this first happened and people kind of thought this was an accident, like Baloo was just like flying into the bleachers. But it wasn't. Disney did it on purpose, and it was a work of art every time. Now, sadly, while the 50th anniversary was still happening, Disney started to pull back on its KitTails performances, making them shorter and more of a drive-by, check-us-out situation, similar to the former flotillas. And even though the 50th anniversary still had a lot more celebrating to do, Disney went ahead and announced that they'd be retiring the show after September 30th, 2022. But because of Hurricane Ian, it actually ended up shutting down before September 30th. So what's going on in the Discovery River Amphitheater now? At the moment, not much. It's just a place where people kind of chill and snack and take a little break from the park. But I'll make sure to let y'all know if the status of that changes in the future. I mean, this is a rather large amphitheater, so surely Disney wants to use it for something else at some point, right? Here you go. Here's the quirky stuff from yesteryear that I was telling you guys about. Back in the 80s, Epcot truly put the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. But there was something inside the World Showcase way back when that I honestly think I've kept suppressed until now, and that's the People of the World pageant dolls. Originally, these massive dolls made their debut during America on Parade, which is a parade that happened in Magic Kingdom from 1975 to 1976 to celebrate the nation's bicentennial. Later on, the dolls came over to Epcot's World Showcase. Considering no one really remembers them all too well, except for old people like me, you can probably guess how well that went over. And I thought the nanny chairs were spooky. I still do, but at least they're not towering over me and wanting to take a picture. And now we've made it to the top 5 strangest things to ever happen in Disney World. You thought things were already strange enough, just you wait. Back during the peak of the pandemic, the NBA and Disney World were basically 2 peas in a pod. So when the NBA season was up in the air and completely on the fence about whether it should resume during the unprecedented times, Disney actually gave them the green light to use their Wide World of Sports complex and a lot of their hotel ballrooms to host the remainder of their games. And that wasn't just because the NBA and Disney were best buddies. Disney also has financial stakes in the NBA, considering they own the rights to broadcast their games. So Disney didn't want to stop the games from happening just as much as the NBA didn't want to stop them either. And you know what happened? The NBA took Disney up on that offer. But in order to pull this off, the league would need to create a health and safety bubble, so to speak, and they did it at Disney World. So the NBA packed up their bags and started moving into select Disney World hotels. According to ESPN, all 22 teams were checking in for a stay of at least 6 weeks, and for 2 of them, the bubble would be the only place they'd visit for more than 3 months. At the start of the arrangement, 8 teams stayed at Grand Destino Tower and Disney's Coronado Springs Resort, 8 teams at Disney's Grand Floridian Resort and Spa, and 6 teams at Disney's Yacht Club Resort. Each team was allowed up to a 35-person traveling party and 17 rooms for extra guests. And in case you're wondering, yeah, that absolutely impacted non-NBA guests who were wanting to stay at these resorts during that time. Because they really couldn't book rooms at these resorts during that time, and poor Beach Club guests couldn't even access Stormalong Bay, the shared feature pool between Yacht and Beach Club, because Stormalong was reserved for the NBA bubble only. Yep, all the basketball players got to swim in the pool. The irony of all this is that while Disney was able to help the NBA continue their season, they were not able to save the short-lived NBA experience that used to be available at Disney Springs, located in the former Disney Quest building. Since the NBA Experience's closure, which was officially announced in 2021, though it never actually reopened after the COVID shutdowns anyways, this building has been left vacant, with just a few pop-up experiences and shops using the space every now and then over the past few years. But recently, we learned that things are about to change big time. Level 99, which is an interactive social entertainment experience known for its challenge rooms, is slated to open its first ever Florida location inside the former NBA Experience / Disney Quest building. This new addition will mark Level 99's 5th location with over 50 physical and mental challenges set in artistic environments. It's essentially a giant futuristic arcade and entertainment center. The Disney Springs location will be the largest Level 99 to date, and on top of all that, it'll also have dining with a chef-created menu, including Level 99's award-winning Detroit-style pizza. There's no exact date for when this experience will be opening up yet, but we'll make sure to keep you in the loop once we learn more. Number 4 on our list, Plant Donald. I will never allow anyone to forget about Plant Donald, ever. In order to fully understand the absurdity of this story, if you're not already familiar with it, you gotta join me on a trip back in time to the year 2021 and over to Epcot's Mexico Pavilion. Now, maybe they just thought that this wouldn't faze us because so much weird stuff had already happened over the past couple of years, but it definitely did faze us. Grand Fiesta Tour, starting the Three Caballeros, is a cutesy little boat ride that has guests helping Panchito and Jose track down their missing buddy Donald. Normally, the birds find our hot-headed mallard friend just fine, and they conclude the ride with their traditional Three Caballeros song. However, for a short time back in 2021, Donald kind of messed things up and refused to be found. Our poor Donald Duck animatronic was missing, and in his place, a little plant wearing a sombrero. After Donald's whole plant stunt, the entire trio was replaced by cardboard cutouts there for a while, and I'm gonna be real with you, I liked the plant better. But a few months later, after we all got ourselves worked up thinking the cardboard cutouts would be a permanent change, our animatronic birds of a feather finally returned to the stage. But I feel like that's one of those things that we Disney adults will always be bonded on, is our time with Plant Donald. Number 3, scandals and breakups. These major happenings in US history might not have been Disney's fault, but they happened on Disney grounds and at the Disney hotels, no less. And if that's not strange, I don't know what is. Did you know that the Beatles officially called it quits on Disney World property? I know, mind-blowing, right? John Lennon told the Beatles in 1969 that he wanted out of the group, and Paul McCartney officially announced it to the public in 1970. But it wasn't until 1974, however, that the band officially signed the papers to end it all. So George and Paul signed in New York, Ringo in England, and John at none other than the Polynesian Village Resort in Disney World went on a family vacation. He received the papers on Christmas Eve, so I guess if you gotta go out, you might as well do it with a Lapu Lapu in hand, right? I am just kidding. I have no idea if he was drinking a Lapu Lapu at the time, but I would have been. The contemporary resorts got quite the history to it too. In 1973, after the events of Watergate, Richard Nixon delivered his famous "I'm not a crook" speech inside none other than the Contemporaries Ballroom of Americas. Of course, very shortly after that speech, Nixon did resign from the presidency for his actions, but those very famous words still live on in American history to this day. Sometimes Disney can be scary. Tower of Terror can be scary. Haunted Mansion can be scary. Nigel Channing's face on the moon can be really scary. But extraterrestrial alien encounter? Now that was a thing of nightmares. This was a Tomorrowland attraction that led guests into a theater, a rather high-tech laboratory, and then onto their doom. Inside the theater, guests took their seats and had to pull down these shoulder restraints in order to get the full impact of the experience. During the show, this horrifying alien creature was transported into the middle of the theater, and at first things were fine. He's trapped in an experimental imprisonment tube, giving you this false sense of security, but then the lights would flicker off and the alien would escape. That was scary enough as it is, but what made matters worse was when the alien would jump on your shoulder restraints and breathe into your ears and drool down your neck. If you didn't think Disney was expensive enough, let's go ahead and tack a therapy bill onto it. Shock, shock, there were several complaints filed against this ride since it was way too scary for a lot of kids. The experience shut down in 2003 and was replaced by Stitch's Great Escape in 2004. This was essentially the same experience, just replaced the terrifying alien monster with a cute and fluffy Stitch, who would still jump on your shoulders and ruffle your hair, and as a fun additional feature, burp bean burrito in your face. This change still wasn't super well received. As if the whole Stitch burping in your face element wasn't strange enough, Disney really wanted to celebrate the new theme when it happened, so Cinderella Castle was redecorated for one day on November 16th, 2004, to hype up the new attraction. And by redecorated, I mean the castle was completely covered in toilet paper and tagged with "Stitch is King." Can you imagine having zero context and just walking into the park to see this? Like, you think you're gonna have this breathtaking, gorgeous castle reveal when you turn onto Main Street USA, and then it's just like a castle that's completely covered in Charmin Ultra. I don't know if it was Charmin. I don't think it was actually real toilet paper. I just see Disney splurging for the good stuff. Stitch's Great Escape closed in 2018, and for a while, the area was instead used as a meet and greet section for Stitch without all the burping. Nowadays, the building remains pretty vacant, though Stitch can still be found meeting and greeting with guests at select times throughout Tomorrowland. Just check your My Disney Experience app to see when he's expected to pop up on the day of your visit. And finally, we've come to the number one strangest thing that's ever happened to Disney World ever, a bear invasion. When Magic Kingdom opened on September 18th, 2023, multiple lands in the park were closed. Adventureland closed. Frontierland, closed. Liberty Square, shut down. And that's because a bear decided life's too short to just stay in the woods and never step foot or paw into the Magic Kingdom. I think this bear is secretly my twin. And because this situation happened so shortly after we learned the Country Bear Jamboree show would be switching over to the Country Bear Musical Jamboree show, that's what really tips the strangeness scale for this one, earning it the #1 spot on today's list. It's like the bear was either trying to protest or audition, or both. But she didn't get the chance to do either. Biologists with the FWC's Bear Management Program and FWC law enforcement officers eventually captured the bear for relocation and released her safely back into the wild over in the Ocala National Forest in Marion County, which is about 90 minutes away from Disney World. Eventually, guests were allowed back into these areas of the park again, but this is just another crucial reminder that literally anything could happen in Disney World to add a hitch to your day, even if you've got a very specific hour-by-hour itinerary that you want to follow. You don't know what might happen that could shake up your entire day, whether it be bad weather, a sudden bout of illness, or even a black bear protester. All right, friends, have at it. What would you put at the top of this list? Or better yet, what would you add to it? Let us know in the comments, and if you're looking for more interesting situations, choices, and happenstances that have occurred inside the Disney bubble, go ahead and check out some of our other videos next, like the 13 creepiest things in the Disney parks. And don't forget to grab our free Disney transportation guide over at disneyfoodblog.com/transport. Thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks for watching. As always, this is AJ for Disney Food Blog, and we'll see you real soon.